You have a lapel? Oh, yeah, you do. I see it. Great. Good morning. Welcome to the King Institute for Faith and Culture. We're glad you're here with us this morning. I'm especially glad because we have a superb speaker and singer in store for you this morning. I'll give you a couple of announcements coming forward. For those of you who are needing to fill up your chapel convo requirement, we have quite a few things coming up, including, unusually for us, a Thursday night this week on the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution with historian James Byrd. That's going to be at State Street United Methodist Church downtown. He'll be here on this Friday, so we'll actually unusually have a convo on Friday morning at 9:15 here with James Byrd. The following Monday, we welcome, finally, after snow delays, theologian Keith Johnson, who's going to talk about the reaction of theologian Karl Barth and others like him to the rise of the Nazi state in the 1930s. He's writing a book about this. That'll be on Monday on our usual schedule next week. And then we have more coming up in April and that we'll turn to a little bit later. After this morning's talk, if you want to spend some time with John or Monique, we're going to be in the Tadlock House for coffee. Anybody who's visiting, you're very welcome to join us there as well. And we'll spend some time in Tadlock. Then we're going to have a lunch in the cafeteria. And you're very welcome to join us there in the Tipton room around 11:20, 11:30. We'll be there. John will also speak again tonight at Lee Street Baptist Church at 7 p.m. He's a native of Jamaica. He was born in Montego Bay, and then his family immigrated to Canada when he was young, and then finally he ended up coming down to the U.S., so he is a double immigrant, John Arthur Nunes. He studied in the Lutheran tradition at Concordia College, then went to a seminary called Concordia, which was they're on both sides of the border, eventually doing a PhD at the Lutheran Seminary in Chicago, where he studied a poet of great interest and theological depth called Derek Walcott. John has occupied positions both in the church and in the academy. He's pastored for a long time. He also ran Lutheran World Relief. Have I got that right? Lutheran World Relief for a long time, where he was working with trying to help people in other parts of the world. He's got a real heart for those in other parts of the world and for people at the margins and for people who have often been left out of the mainstream of the way that we think about church. And that has poured over into his published works as well as into his work. He eventually moved back into academia, and he is now in his second college presidency at the California Lutheran University in Thousand Oaks, California. He's joined today by his wife, Monique, who is also an academic. She has worked in student development, most recently at Concordia in Irvine, California. And she's also a gifted musician who's going to share her talents with us, I believe, this morning. So please join me in welcoming John Arthur Nunes.
Good morning, good morning. First things first, Caroline. Where are you, Caroline? Give it up for Caroline for your meticulous attention to all of the details. Thank you so much. Thank you also very much, Martin Dodderwyk, for your visionary leadership, which is exceeded only by your groundbreaking scholarship, which is exceeded only by the quality of your friendship. So thank you for treating me like you like me and welcoming us so well to Bristol. Back to Bristol. I am extremely delighted to be among you today, and thankful for my wife, Monique. Oftentimes I'll go places and talk, and then she sings, and then they invite her back. So you'll see what that's about. I play, but this morning I'm not going to be able to play with her. I don't know if you can see the difference, but we have 23 intercollegiate sports teams at California Lutheran University, and our newest venture is in women's flag football, which is the fastest growing sport in the United States of America. We've got a game next Monday against UCLA, which is a little community college near us. And so we were trying to help promote that game, and somehow the media team talked me into making a video as the college president. So I was running some routes, and I was really worried about my hamstrings and my Achilles tendon, and it turns out I jammed up my hand, and so I'm in a lot of pain, and I won't be able to play. But Monique is going to sing a cappella. So let me know when there's 5 minutes remaining, please. I'd like to talk a little bit about this theme, the quest to be your best. Not the quest to be the best, not as if you are thirsty or thirsting to be first, but the quest to be your very best. I don't want to approach this theme from the perspective of a kind of drive to drive your opponents into submission, to crush them to dust. It is not lost on me that your name, Tornado, comes from a Lutheran association. I'm the president of one of the 28 schools in what we call the NECU network, the network of ELCA colleges and universities. And over 100 years ago, in fact, 105 years ago, it was the King College football team that beat a Lutheran school down the road called Lenore-Rhine in football by the score of 206-0, which set a record. In fact, it's the second highest score. And they ended that game early because darkness came in. So it's not lost on me that you have a very storied athletic tradition here. But I want to talk more about your instinct to think in ways that allow your thinking to move and sink into action in your life. And I want to begin by acknowledging my own limits on this topic, and really on any topic. And I need Caroline again. Let me try this. Yeah, we were here early, we had it set up, it was working perfectly well. I think it needs your password. I want to begin by acknowledging my own limits. So it's not like I have figured out this quest. It's not like I'm any sort of expert along the journey of life. In fact, in my own life, I'm still trying to figure a lot of things out. If you knew me like I know me, you probably wouldn't waste your time sitting here listening to me. And it's a miracle that you are, Monique. But then again, if I know you like you know you, I might not waste my breath even trying to talk to you this morning. So it's an even trade-off. If we are honest about who we are, we realize that none of us has got this figured out. So I acknowledge my own limits in terms of the journey. My journey, though, is sustainable and secure because I know who it is, the God who it is, who walks with me along that journey and hasn't given up on me along the way. And so I want to begin by acknowledging my limits. I also want to ground this morning's conversation in some words from Paul in the book of Philippians. Thank you very much, Caroline. Where he says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence. Can you say that word with me, please? Excellence. Say that word with me, please. Excellence. Thank you. And if there's anything worthy of praise, think on these things. So I want to talk about thinking in such a way that our thinking sinks into our lives and into our actions. And I want to focus on this particular text. In the first place, you are exactly at the right place at the right time. And I don't mean to be in this room at this moment, but I mean to be at a faith-based college or university called King University with a liberal arts core. This is exactly the place where your thinking can be nurtured and formed, and you can be groomed into growing in such a way that you'll work your way into the world. It's the place where critical thinking happens. It's the kind of place where success is measured in more than wins. You are a student athlete, and King University is a school that takes that very seriously. It's not only your athletics that brings you here, but you are also a student. You are a person first. And so this is exactly the sort of place. It's not about how you make a living in life, but it's about how you make a life in the world. I am a product of a faith-based college or university with a very traditional liberal arts background, and that shaped me for leadership more than any other experience in my life. People will often ask me, what books would I recommend, what leadership books? They're looking for 5 quick tips or 3 easy steps or 7 highly effective habits of something or another. And I say to them, hands down, the best training, the best preparation for leadership in the world is to go to a faith-based college or university and to get a liberal arts education, because it does more than just kind of treat you for, preparing you for a career in the world, but it prepares you as a person. And so my own journey, my only quest to be my best was formed and shaped in the same sort of environment where you find yourself this morning. I arrived on a campus in 1981 in Ann Arbor, Michigan, a small Lutheran school called Concordia College. And I often will describe that day. You've heard I'm an immigrant. I'm a double immigrant. In fact, I carry around this document with me everywhere I go. Does anyone know what this is? That's exactly right, because I just don't have time to be detained. I understand, officer, that you might have a job to... No, not that you are a nice officer, sir. But I understand you, officer, may have a job to do, but I've also got a job to do. I've got a university to run, and I don't have time to explain my background. But when I got to Concordia College in Ann Arbor, Michigan, they gave me a form on a piece of paper. You remember when we used to use paper to fill out forms? And so they gave me this form on a piece of paper. And I remember the second category. I will often describe that day as the day I became black. Because they gave me this form, and under ethnicity, the first category on the form was black. And so my father is black. He's very black, black and proud. He's actually an educator. He calls himself an emancipatory educator. And he was a student of Marcus Garvey and the United Negro Improvement Association, which really did change the world and change the United States of America and Harlem in terms of the Harlem Renaissance. And so I checked that box, because you obviously need to be what your father is. The next box on that same form was white. So it turns out that my mother is white. My father received a scholarship when he was in Jamaica to go to Canada to study. And he went to Canada, he got a degree, and he got a wife. And he took her back to Jamaica with him. And 9 months later, that's the story they're telling. 9 months later, I was born. They're sticking to it. 9 months later, I was born. And so my mother is Scottish, and she's white. She's like see-through white. She's very, very white, like freckled up. And in fact, I tease her often. I'll say, "You're as white as the Canadian flag." And she actually has red hair. So I say, "You're very loyal to your nation in terms of red and white." And so my father is Jamaican. So my mother is still living. I visited her, in fact, last week, teased her with the same thing. She lives in the same hometown as Shea Gilgis Alexander, who was cut, by the way, from his 9th grade basketball team. So there's still hope for you. And so had a great visit with her. As I was filling out the form, there were a few more categories on the form. The next category was, it was before Hispanic was the common term in the lexicon to describe people of Latino descent. And so our last name is Nunes. We have no idea how we got that name. We like to say it was like the Pirates of the Caribbean or something like that, and it probably was. They left offspring. They left the name Nunes. If it had a Z, it would be Spanish. It's Portuguese because it has an S. I actually looked back over that name to try to figure out what the derivation of the name was, and it turns out the name is actually Sephardic Jewish. But that wasn't on the form. But nonetheless, so I checked the Spanish surname on the form. And then the last category was something like international students. So I was born in Jamaica, raised in Canada, living in the U.S., which is 3 countries, which is pretty international. So I checked that box. I had about 8 boxes checked on the form. 2 days later, the campus census taker, a guy who had a bow tie tied far too tightly, had an apoplectic fit. He said, "You cannot be all of these things. You can only be one thing," he said to me. "So you need to figure out what you are," he said. And as I reflected back on that moment, I've thought to myself, why can't I just be who God made me to be on my own particular quest to be my best? Why do I have to be something to fit into someone else's categories? Maybe some of you have asked yourself that same sort of question. It seems to me that the quest to be our best begins with a sense of identity that is clearly grounded in our identity as human persons created in the image of God. It seems to me that the quest to excellence begins with owning our identity, not as a category, not as a demographic box that we check, not as an ethnic expectation, but being who we are in terms of who God made us to be. The quest to be the best. These are my parents. My father died about 10 years ago, but these are them. So I want to begin by looking at this whole notion of diversity, which of course has become a dirty word in our culture. And I believe that's an unfortunate turn. And I've got an acrostic that I like using for diversity that helps us to think about the theme. So it begins with the D, different. Turn to someone near you and tell them, you're different. Now, if they laugh when you said, tell them you're really different. If they smile, just tell them you're very different. Thank you. Different. And so difference is a good thing. Difference is built into the creation. Difference is God's thing. Different individuals. So each of us is our own sort of idiomatic person, fearfully and wonderfully made, uniquely created. Different individuals. Valuing doesn't mean you have to agree with people to value them. I mean, Miss Mo and I have 6 kids. We had a daughter, and then after that we had a daughter. Then we had a daughter, and then we had a daughter. And after that we had a daughter, and then we had a son. So we got, and like he's like worse than all of the girls put together. But five girls and a boy. And believe me, there's lots of things that I don't agree with these 6 about, but that does not diminish whether or not I value them. So it is possible to value people with whom you disagree. Different individuals valuing each other regardless of, that's what love really is. Love loves in spite of or irrespective of or regardless of skin, identity, talent, or years. The quest to be the best begins with an understanding of diversity, a valuing of people who you might consider different. I'm going to skip a few slides here and go on to a next point. So I want to unpack this verse a little bit. Finally, brothers and sisters, and I want to begin with this notion of thinking on these things. There's a very cool, if you peel back the English and you get to the Greek beneath, there's a very cool Greek verb, and it's logizomai. Logizomai, which means sort of to logicalize. It means to think in a deep way about things. Part of the problem in our culture and on that quest to be the best is that people have been, I believe, and that's one of the things that, by the way, I love about Paul, about the work that you do in arts and sciences and liberal arts education, is that it encourages deeper thinking than merely superficial memes or just skimming of what's on top of the surface. Deep reading. To actually be contemplative and think deeply about the big questions in life. That life is about more than merely survival or more than just following our basic instinct, but that life also is about thinking about the existential questions, the questions of meaning, the questions of what matters, questions like why am I here? What am I called to do in my life? To think deeply about the deeper questions. That's what it means to logizomai, to logicalize. And then if you peel back the English and get underneath the word excellence, there's this beautiful Greek word arete. Arete. And arete is a word that has 2 meanings. And I want to unpack them both. The first meaning is a theological meaning. It has to do with character. So the quest to be the best is not only about performance. It's not only about your skills or developing your skill set. But it's also about the underlying character that undergirds that skill set. I mean, you can be the most talented person in the world and be a failure as a human person if you haven't developed character. The character actually matters, which is why thinking matters. There's that old adage, it's kind of overwrought, overdone, and overworked, but I think there's a truth to it. Watch your thoughts, because thoughts become words. Watch your words, because words become actions. Watch your actions, because your actions become habits. Watch your habits, because habits become character. And watch your character, because your character determines your destiny. Again, I think it's got some problems in it, but there's some truths to that. So the first sense of arete is excellence or character. The second sense of arete is completely unrelated. It has to do with a geological term in terms of the way mountains are formed. And I want to make a point about that. So just remember the second meaning has to do with a ridge or a mountain range, is also called an arete. And I'm going to return to that in a moment. But first, just to illustrate what I mean by character. I'm not a fan of the LA Rams football team. I'm a man of character. And I can prove it. I'm a Buffalo Bills diehard. And so, what does BILLS stand for? Boy, I love losing Super Bowls, right? And so I'm a diehard Bills fan, and I remain so, no matter how they treat me. But the LA Rams, when they were in St. Louis, Missouri, were in the Super Bowl, which ended the 1999 season. So the Super Bowl that was played in January, February 2000. And they played against a team from Tennessee, which is why I bring you this story. And the game was ended by a play by a player that Monique and I actually know. Monique's father's a pastor, and this guy who made the play was a member of his church, and we got to know him. A great human being. His name was Mike Jones, and people don't remember really his name, but he made the play that saved the day, and it's actually called, if you Google, the tackle. It's considered the greatest defensive play in Super Bowl history. And it's against a guy named Kevin Dyson, who was reaching to try to get to the end zone and came up at the 6-inch line. And Mike Jones made the grass. And so they asked Mike about that tackle. I actually thought about this story last night after the story you were telling. They asked Mike about the tackle, how he made the tackle. And he says, I know I'm not the most talented player. I know I'm not the biggest player. I know I'm not the strongest. And I know I'm not the fastest. And I utterly know I'm not the smartest. So what I needed to do was develop my character as a player, is what he says. And I needed to develop technique. And so when the play was run, everybody went that direction because that's where the movement was, but I stayed home because that was my assignment. See, that's what character does. I stayed home, and it turned out I was in the right place at the right time. I love that story about how character leads on your quest to be your best. That character is what grounds it. You can be as talented as you think you are. And some of you are really into yourself in terms of how talented you think you are. And you think you should be at another school beside King University, okay, because you think you're just that good. But utterly none of that matters if you're not grounded in character. None of that matters. So, an example from Mike Jones. The second use of the term, and I'm a lover of poetry. So I love poetry. It gives meaning and depth and purpose to my life. And I am haunted by history. And I need theology to make sense of my life. It's kind of the organizing principle. And I'm fascinated by people. But I love poetry. There's a poet named W.H. Auden, Wystan Hugh Auden. And in a letter that he wrote in 1941 to a woman named Elizabeth Meyer, he hints at this notion that brings together both excellence of character on the one hand, and this kind of geological metaphor, or this geological image, or a mountain range image. I love the way he does this. And he does it in such a way that he shows that there's a particular danger in making decisions. In fact, the hardest part of leadership is decision making. Because oftentimes in leadership, you don't get a good decision or a bad decision. You get a bad decision, you get a worse decision, but you know you must make a decision. Because indecisiveness is oftentimes worse than making the wrong decision. And so he kind of highlights this in this wonderful little poetic piece, and he goes to the question of, there are some people who are so stuck on the kind of perfection of character that they make no decision because they're waiting to make the perfect decision. And if you're waiting to make the perfect decision, you won't make any decision because there won't be a perfect decision in life. The way life is, the quandary of life in terms of its ethics is that you often only get a difficult decision and a worse decision, but you must decide. And he uses this metaphor here. That's Auden. So, perched upon the sharp arete. So think of yourself standing on a mountain range at kind of the tip of a mountain range. That's why it's called sharp arete. Where if we do not move, we fall. So you just kind of know the physics of it, or that, you can't keep a bicycle up unless the bicycle's moving. So the physics are that you've got to make a decision because you're up there and you're in a position of leadership and you got to make a decision. You're standing on this kind of perch, on this kind of sharp arete. Yet, movement is heretical. In other words, anything you decide, people can poke holes in it, which is the easiest thing in the world. God bless you leaders, right? The easiest thing in the world is to be a cynic on the outside and throw bombs in from the outside. All right, so movement is heretical since over its ironic rocks, there again, you see this is a wonderful rhyming scheme, but you also see what he means by the mountain range metaphor. No route is truly orthodox. So the point I'm trying to make is that on your quest to be your best, you must do something. You cannot merely sit back on the outside or on the sidelines and cast aspersions and critique. On the journey, on this pilgrim journey called life, you got to decide. And you got to know that any decision you make will be both dangerous and will be imperfect. But knowledge never comes in a vacuum. It's got to be enacted. One of my favorite quotes about knowledge has to do with, it's from Bernard of Clairvaux. And so, why do people pursue knowledge? Why does learning matter? What is the purpose of knowledge? And Clairvaux says it boils down to three things. There are those who seek knowledge for the sake of knowledge, for its own sake, and that's curiosity. It's beautiful in Latin because it rhymes in Latin. I love Latin. In fact, I was speaking the other day somewhere, and I said, I'm a lover of Latin. Are there any other Latin lovers in the room? And this guy from Dominican Republic in the back of the room said, I am a Latin lover. I said, I don't think we're talking about the same thing here, brother. Yeah. But I do love Latin. There are some who seek knowledge for the sake of knowledge, and that's curiosity, and that's okay. That's a good thing. To be intellectually curious matters. To actually probe and interrogate, to grab problems by the lapels, and to ask difficult questions of big problems matters. To be curious matters. And then there are those who seek knowledge to be known by others. Now, this is not good, right? So this is vanitas. So curiositas is curiosity, and then vanitas. There are those who seek knowledge because they just want to show everybody what they know. There's a Bob Marley song, bend down low, let me show you what I know. Okay. All right, but the point of the matter is that there are those who just want to show folk what they know. Okay, so that's why they want knowledge. But Clairvaux goes on, Bernard goes on to a third point. There are those who seek knowledge in order to serve, in order to make a difference in life and make a difference in the world. And the word here is caritas. Caritas, so it's a lovely rhyming scheme through here. All right, and that's the meaning of the quest to be the best. We can never content with just seeking knowledge for its own sake, but the knowledge we seek has got to be for the sake of something much more. I'm going to skip over this in the interest of time. And I want to move to a poem by Maya Angelou where she talks about how God's love always takes on flesh and engages entirely in our world. We, she says, unaccustomed to courage. See, courage is one of the virtues of excellence. It's one of the virtues of arete. And courage is meant for people who lack it. It's not meant for people who think they've got it. So if you've got fear, that's what courage is meant for. We, unaccustomed to courage, exiles from delight, live coiled in shells of loneliness until love leaves its high holy temple and comes into our sight to liberate us into life. So if you can think of the Word becoming flesh and dwelling among us, that's sort of the hint that she's picking up here. The word liberate is a great word. It's at the same core as the word liberal arts. The liberal arts free up our mind. Another Bob Marley song, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. And so that's what the purpose of the liberal arts are, to set the mind free. Okay. She goes on. Love arrives, and in its train, Dr. Dodderwhite, there come ecstasies, old memories of pleasure, ancient histories of pain. Yet if we are bold, love strikes away the chains of fear from our souls, and we are weaned from our timidity. In the flush of love's light, we dare be brave, and suddenly we see that love costs all we are and will ever be, yet it is only love which sets us free. The truth sets us free, but that truth is only freedom setting if it's put into action in love. G.K. Chesterton, a I like, said, let your religion be less of a theory and more of a love affair. And so, in conclusion, it's not about noise or words that we find our way to be the best in our quest, to be our best. But it is in those times of contemplative reflection. Does anyone know the name of Howard Thurman? Howard Thurman was one of Martin King's advisors, his spiritual mentor. And when the movement got tough, King would come to Thurman for counsel. And Thurman would often say to him, 3 words, Martin, 3 words, protect your spirit. And Thurman was a great speaker. He spoke at the commencement at Spelman College in the year 1980. And at that commencement, he said this. He said, you're going to hear many words in life and many people giving you counsel in life. But the most important part of life is to learn how to listen. And to learn how to listen to what God is saying and speaking to your spirit. So he said, listen and wait for the sound of the genuine in yourself. The sound of the genuine in yourself. Who you truly are, not the box that you check, not the clique that you run with, the group that you run with, but who you are, who God made you to be. Irreplicably you. Irreversibly you. Inimitably you. Only you. The you that only you can be. He says, and if you cannot hear the sound of the genuine in yourself, if you don't find that kind of contemplative space, that kind of time and space where you step away and where you spend time with just you, if you cannot hear it, you will spend your days at the end of strings that somebody else pulls. So the blessing you have sitting here this morning on your journey, on your pilgrim journey, is that Jesus does walk with you and that this education will set you free from being at the end of a string that someone else pulls. Miss Mo.
walk with me. I want Jesus to walk with me. All along this pilgrim journey, I want Jesus to walk with me. In my trials, Lord, walk with me. Oh, in my trials, oh Lord, please walk with me. When my life is almost over, oh, I want Jesus to walk with me. When I'm tired, Lord, oh, walk with me. When I'm weak, Lord, come on and walk with me. All along this pilgrim journey. Oh Lord, I want Jesus to walk with me.
Great job. Thanks, man. Thank you.
As predicted, we are going to invite Monique back. She was great. Thank you so much, John and Monique both. If you want to spend some time with these good folks, please feel free to join us in the Tadlock House. We'll have coffee and some snacks. We'll be at lunch around 11:30 in the Tipton Room. Thank you all for being here. Go and do good.